Hi everyone, it's Kris with the singlesnetwork.org ministries. In one of my other videos, I addressed some of the reasons why singles ministry is not in our churches. Some of the things that are going on culturally, how the church has changed in all these years. And then we also talked about some of the reasons why you should not have why you should or shouldn't have a singles ministry. Definitely it's not for social reasons. Definitely it's not because other churches have one and you want to have one. And it's definitely not to just get singles married, although heaven forbid you do meet your spouse in church. But we're going to talk about some of the reasons you should have a singles ministry and the importance behind it. But be sure that you watch the other videos because I think they're going to give you some insights that this one might not have that'll go along with this video and helping to start and grow a singles ministry. So let's start with one of the first ones is we want to enhance the church growth. If we're not doing singles ministries just to have a social club, just to have a group of people to hang out with. Although I think community is critical, and I think singles have some of the best community ever because you can be friends with the opposite sex, and I love that. I have so many great guy friends that, guy friends turn into guy husbands at some point in time. And so what a great place for us to learn how to have healthy relationships of the opposite sex that could one day become a spouse if the Lord leads it. But ultimately, our part of the church and why we start singles ministry is because we want to grow the church. There's just, we're 54% of our country. And so we could be this huge part of our church that can, we have much more flexibility of our time and money. And yet we're the least reached in the church. Not that we have more time, we don't. You can't just up and, say to me, oh, you're single, you have more time. No, I think we have the same clock you do, married person. But some of the flexibility of a single adult, especially doesn't have children anymore or never had any children, is that we can do a lot of things and go places and be on different committees and mission trips and not have those other factors to think about or pray about. Necessarily, I'm not saying pray, but I mean pray in the sense of that we don't have to sit there and go back to our spouse. So there's some value in the church growth aspect. Another one is to develop an outreach to the growing number of single adults in your church and community. You've seen these singles. You know they're there. They're coming on church on Sundays, but they're not staying. You know there are tons of them in your community, but you don't know how to reach them. And you're like, Lord, I really believe that we are called as a church to reach this demographic. I really feel a singles ministry will do that. But that comes down to being strategic in what type of singles ministry you want to offer and who you want to offer it to. Another reason is to fulfill the Great Commission. Go ye make disciples of all nations. Are we doing that? Are we as a church reaching this group of people that are already with us? We don't have to go find them. I think often we want to do ministry to demographics, maybe Hispanic or Vietnamese that are also in our community, but the percentage is much smaller than the single adult percentage. And so if we as a church would say, wow, you know what, I want to reach this demographic. I didn't realize that half of our city was not married. Oh my goodness, we're really not doing as much as we could. But understand too, I know that most married pastors don't really know how to minister to us. They don't know how to reach us. They don't even know how to talk to us. A lot of them are scared of us. And so I try to educate pastors a little bit more about us. And you watching this video can also do the same. You're the best as a single adult. You're the best leader. You're the best representative to your church to show them what we are and what we aren't. That we don't have leprosy. We don't rub off on them. And the leading cause of divorce is not single people. It's other married people. And so for them to understand that we are just as valuable in the kingdom, that Jesus himself was single, and that's pretty good. Paul was single, and so many others in the Bible, and how God wants to use us to build the kingdom, the Great Commission, just like a married person. Here's another reason, is to meet the needs of single adults who want spiritual growth, healing opportunities, and social fellowship. We as single adults need healing too. We need to also personally grow in our walk. And we also would love to have community. We'd love to have people to hang out with, going through a similar life stage. And so for a lot of times when I come to churches, there's really nothing for me as a single adult. I'm forced to go into a mixed married class or married Sunday school or a small group. And again, sometimes that may be a season in my life that I need to be in that type of group. I need to be in a married group. especially if I'd like to be married. It would be helpful to be around married people. But sometimes I just need to be around people like me. And if the church doesn't have it, then where do I go? So a lot of times I don't go anywhere. And I just kind of come in and I go out and I don't get involved. I want singles to be involved in the whole church. I want them to be involved in every part of church, married and single. But sometimes we need a gate. We need an opening that allows us to come through first. Not to keep us there, but to simply allow us to kind of get our bearings before we become a part of the whole church. Now, we're going to talk about the basics on how to start a singles ministry. These are simply the basics, and every ministry is going to be different. Now, I shared earlier in this video and in other videos the importance of talking to your pastors and praying. Nehemiah is one of my favorite people in the Bible, and he gives us a good model of how to start things, that you have to pray. One of the biggest things that I see wrong with singles ministries is we don't pray. We don't pray about our ministry. We don't pray for the growth of our ministry. We don't pray for the direction. We don't pray for the vision. We don't pray for goals. We don't pray for leader. We don't pray at all. We sort of pray. We sort of pray for each other, families and issues and jobs. But who is praying for the ministry and the direction? And if God even wants you to have a singles ministry, how do you know for sure unless you're praying? So one of the things I would gather a few people like yourself that just have a heart for this and feel like God is calling you to do something. Just get together and start praying. Meet weekly and start praying for the direction of the ministry, whether God wants you to start one or not. Who should be in your ministry? Who should be your team? Who should be you reach? Who are you going to reach? If you're a 32-year-old and you're meeting with a 60-year-old to pray, are you going to reach 30-year-olds or 60-year-olds? Those are all the things you need to decide upon before you start to build the ministry. So be praying every week for a period of several weeks to see the direction that God is giving you. Obviously, you want to set up a vision, some goals. How are you trying to reach people? You want to know who are you trying to reach? What about your community, your church? I would also maybe do a survey in your church, send it out through like MailChimp or SurveyMonkey or whatever, and find out what are the needs of the singles in your church. Your church should have a database that has people separated out by married or single. And you'd be able to send this out to them to get a response back to just see who is in our church and who would be interested in a singles ministry. But here's the thing, you need to follow up as well. You have to follow up with the people that have sent in the survey to let them know you got the information, and also just to kind of see who's there. One of the questions on the survey might be, have you ever been in leadership for singles before? Have you ever led a divorce care, a grief share, a Bible study, a teacher? Find out who's out there that could actually be a part of your leadership team, which is something we're going to talk about more in another video, but it's something critical because without a healthy leadership team, you simply will not have a very successful singles ministry. Your leadership team on a basic side is going to be people that maybe in the beginning will just help you pray, but eventually they're going to be the ones that are going to build your ministry. So without the basics of starting with a good team and versus one or two people, you're already causing issues before they even happen. You're already putting yourself in a vulnerable state of not having the team there to build the ministry. One of the things I like to do to start a singles ministry is just to offer a Bible study. And so I'll do a Bible study. I have several on my site. I've written a few, and I actually have leadership curriculum on my website that you can also start. It's just a 6-week course that helps you begin the steps of how to start a singles ministry, but also grow an existing one, or even recast the vision of an old one. But having your leaders in place. So you're going to pray first, and you're going to start praying and seeing what God develops. You might start a Bible study that's that people are interested. Now understand, if you start a Bible study called Boundaries or Bible study called Safe People, you're going to draw people that are not necessarily healthy. And that's probably not the first Bible study that I would do. I would do something that's more related to either leadership or John Maxwell, or perhaps like I have one called Jesus Single Like Me, or one that's on a book of the Bible, just to get people in the door to see kind of who they are, a little bit of their story, a little bit of their life, and just let the Lord, let the Holy Spirit just start to lead you into raising up. Certain people start to raise up, and you'll see their qualities, and that may end up being the first leadership team. But that's where I would start. And then the third part, which is very important, it's very strategic, is public relations. So to start a healthy singles ministry, you've got to have prayer that never stops. You don't say, I've got my team, I'm done. It always keeps going. Leadership development, which again, we're going to address more in another video, is in having that to start your team and to start to build your team and to know how you're going to grow your team. And of course, we never give up. With leaders, you never stop looking for leaders. And then the third one is public relations. So how is your ministry being perceived by the church? Or do they look like you're, a bunch of pathetic, helpless looking people? Do they look like, the rejects of the world? Or are they healthy? Or they appear to be something they can add to the church? I always say to people that, why does McDonald's continue to advertise? Because they have to. You can't ever stop thinking that public relations is important. Singles ministry already has a bad rap. A lot of pastors are not interested in doing singles ministry. A lot of churches don't want it. A lot of them have bad memories. Maybe the last singles ministry, people all, ended up together. They met up in a wrong way. They call it a meat market, because there was no leadership in place. A lot of singles ministries, the leadership all married each other, and then there was no leadership because they didn't grow any. So there's lots of bad reputation of what singles ministry is. So without a positive image, without good public relations, you're already struggling right at the start of what your ministry will be. So for me, I'm very strategic in my public relations. I involve married people in my ministry. I work with other departments in the church. I build resources. I connect with counselors. I connect with other leaders in the church. I connect with deacons and elders. I have them come and maybe give their testimony. Then I go and give my testimony or other singles testimonies in their Sunday school classes or small groups. I work in the community. I work with the fire, the police, social services. I build a network of resources around me in order to show that this is a valued resource in the church. Also important is to get our singles involved quickly with outreach. So at one church I ministered to in South Carolina, the singles themselves were in charge of the shoe boxes at Christmas. So they knew that they pretty much had set, they weren't going to be let go of in the church because they had such a valuable part of the church because they did this huge outreach at Christmas time. But being a singles ministry, the perception is that you actually add to the church versus taken away, that you're there to maybe help with the nursery, or you greet on Sunday, or you do the mission trips, or you're, assist one of the other ministries that are going on. I worked at one church for a while, a few years ago, where the churches had refugees, and the singles ministry adopted an entire family, and we made sure they got jobs, they got their driver's license, they got a home, they learned how to cook, all those things, and we did it as a singles ministry. And so having a good public relations and the perception of who we are and what we're not is important. Some of that comes also from you as a single leader, as an individual, as a pastor. How are you saying, or what are you saying about your singleness? Is it that, oh, we're all lonely, we don't have nobody, please help me find somebody? Or, God is using us to do amazing things. And it's kind of cool that I don't have to ask anybody, that I can just ask the Lord on what I can do and not do and how I can serve. And so when married people begin to see singles as an asset to the church, as a value to the church, as a bonus, even to the point to where some marrieds would say, boy, I wish I was single. You guys have so much fun. You guys do so much for the Lord, and we need you at this church. You want your singles ministry to be a place that people would want to send their single friends, their single kids, their single parents, a place that they know that they're going to feel safe and they're going to belong and they're going to feel value, a place that they're going to hear from God, a place that they're going to learn how to grow and walk in the Lord, a place that their life will change for the better. So right from the beginning, what does that look like? How are you going to set that up? How are you going to give that perception? But it's a true perception of who you are as a ministry. Right from the get-go, it's a ministry that's balanced with men and women. It's healthy people growing, that it's not just a big hospital and where nobody ever gets healthy or never gets healed, but it's a place that anyone can be a part of. It's a place where people are growing and changing for the Lord. And it's a place where people are going to be able to then go into other parts of the church, and they're going to continue to add. And we're going to all be like in the church in Acts, where it said that everybody sold everything they had and they gave, that nobody was without what they needed. That's what, to me, is the most perfect singles ministry, is that everyone helps each other. And maybe we'll rub off on the marrieds and just show them what real community looks like and how we come together and how they should come together. This is Kris Swiatocho with the singlesnetwork.org Ministries.